And we're live. Hello and welcome to the 122nd episode of Hex Therapy Live. I'm your host, Maddie ALLin, and I think tonight's show is going to be legendary. There's something that I've been trying to figure out when it comes to Pulse Chain that I've been thinking about for almost 2 years now, and I think I finally figured out how the origin address is going to play something. So I think it's time to take note tonight that I'm making a prediction that I think is going to be pretty legendary. And that has to do with the Fixer bot and why it has $636 million worth of test pulse sitting in its address on testnet v3 right now. But, I got to tell you, I was pretty inspired in preparing for this show because so many people have been tuning in lately. And I'm just shocked at how popular Hex Therapy Live is getting. And I'm going to try to guess as to why people are tuning in so much. And go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button, by the way, if you haven't already. But I think the reason that so many people are tuning into this show is because they're getting really good analysis of what's going on testnet, and people are excited about the price of Hex, about the gatekeeping possibly coming to an end, and about some of the big ideas that we'll talk about tonight. And so, because I listened to my last stream where 6,000 people tuned in, and I was like trying to figure out, what are things that people want to learn on this channel. So I figured that people like the format of me having an outline ahead of time. And so I made an outline tonight of the topics we're going to cover. And then also just the alpha that's being shared here. I think people like the integration with what you're learning on other channels, because I listen to many of the other Hex streamers. I kind of know where they've left off with educating people and getting people excited about the biggest ideas that are happening in this space. I think people want to learn about Pulse Chain Testnet v3, like where it's at, where it's going. People like that I'm building a project where you can undo a hack using self-custody. So I've noticed some like pretty big people start to follow my Twitter and my YouTube because of that. I think people want to learn about Richard Hart and about his psychology, as well as like in general, what are the insights that people can gain about the market and about market behavior, crypto psychology. We talk about the meetups that I'm planning, and deep knowledge about Hex. And then, of course, we sprinkle in a little bit of GPT-4. This is coming to you every week for the past 122 weeks straight, every Thursday night. So, and then what's more to love is that sometimes you'll get some tips about behavior change and self-improvement. So that's pretty exciting. So I'm going to go through the outline here. So the outline of today's show, I think I want to talk about what Tangent was asking on Twitter, led me down a particular rabbit hole that led me to kind of think that I have a really, really good idea of what the OA might do when it comes to the Fixer bot and launching Pulse Chain and all that good kind of stuff. I think it's pretty brilliant. And then, so I'll show the math on that. And then we can talk about where the Pulse Chain bridge is at the moment. It looks like Axis Alive and Crypto Coffee covered the new ALLin indicator yesterday on their stream. So I'll go over what that means. Let's see, talk about T-shares, talk about Smart Vault and Time Pays Me developments, do the last call for Hexpo Miami tickets. And then I can talk a little bit about what my macro take is right now, because it makes a really big difference to crypto, whether we're in quantitative easing or quantitative tightening. There's pretty much a debate going on as to that. I can give you my analysis on Staker App V2 and the possible coin that was announced today and what I think about that. And then, I want to put this all in the context of like, don't let humble Richard fool you, because the things that are about to happen in Pulse Chain and Hex are definitely going to create crypto history. And so whether we're talking about what's going to happen with the Shanghai upgrade and when Pulse Chain launches. But I really want to get back at the end of the day to talking about this fixer bot, because I think that's the biggest deal. So, hey, thanks for tuning in. We're going to get this show started. So hit the like and subscribe button, and welcome to Hex Therapy Live.
It's from ALLin of HexTherapy.live. It's from ALLin of HexTherapy.live. I like Maddie. Maddie tries to make the world a healthier place. He's a mental health professional. He's done research.
Big videos on sudden wealth syndrome.
There's nothing that a human being can do better than try and heal his fellow man.
Maddie Allen's got that covered. He does emotional, feel-good, mind management, emotion stuff, like, as his gig, because he's a therapist. That's what he does for a living. Like, he helps heal people.
So I'm probably going to go through using Twitter as my guide of what I'm talking about here, because I'm going to try to put some pieces together of a puzzle and see if everybody can see what I'm seeing when it comes to what I predict the OA is up to when it comes to the fixer bot. And I think that this is really exciting. So I'm glad everybody's here tonight and on the replay. So as I said, it was from surfing Twitter that caused me to go down this rabbit hole where I discovered how many pulse points the fixer bot address has. So Hex Tangent, who makes amazing content and is a brilliant mind in the space, he was asking here on Twitter, and he said, I desperately want a better idea of what happens to LPs on Pulse Chain at launch. If you're in a position to provide information about this, not speculation, then please comment on this post so we can work this out. And then he ended up, I guess, seeing it was the user who goes by the handle 100acre_block posted what they say is the fixer bot address on Pulse Chain testnet that K4K Crypto found. And so I used this address to go on to pulsechain.com. And then I went to the Explorer, I believe. No, that's where I went first. It's actually not that Explorer that we need to look at. It's the Block Explorer here. So I went to the Block Explorer, which is scan.v3.testnet.pulsechain.com. And I entered in this address, and that's where I found this gigantic number of test pulse. And, what we know is that it was basically the thing that was holding up testnet v3 from launching was the fixer bot needing to run for however many days, a couple days or something. And so if this address is the fixer bot, then that might make a lot of sense. I guess you could go on the blockchain, you could see, maybe if you could imagine, maybe this was the sacrifice address. It might have had this many tokens, but I think in general, it might be safe to assume that this is, the fact that it's already had 21,000 transactions and 24,000 transfers. Also, I guess maybe gives some evidence there that this could be considered a fixer bot address. But so if I go to Wolfram Alpha, then I can plug in that number and I can try to make sense of it. And that number is 6.3 trillion, right? And so if I divide that by 10,000, which is how many pulse points you would need in order to have $1 worth of sacrifice, that tells me that the total value here is like 636 100 million. And so that's a shocking number to me, because that's a similar amount as to what all the users all the users sacrificed. Like how many community controlled pulse chain points are there? Well, it's very similar to that number. I think it was like $600 million dollars worth, basically, of sacrifice. And so if the fixer bot, so remember that the OA came in as I predicted. I was the one. I was pretty much the only person with a large channel who predicted that the OA was going to come in at the end of the sacrifice. And that added another 14 billion on top of the 600 million that had been sacrificed. And even if it was at a worse rate, this could lead us to assume that the, in this case, the sacrifice address, or you could call it the origin address, daughter addresses, basically this, this one address had like 10 or 20 times as much of a sacrifice as everybody else. And that actually puts, as you may be able to see here, that puts the blockchain in a really actually good position, because as you'll be able to see, the fixer bot, I think if it had 2.5% or 5% of the total supply, then that could be an amount that's like equal to the amount of pulse that's user controlled. And so instead of it being like 5% of the total amount that was sacrificed, in this case, if you factor in the OA coins, it's actually the fixer bot could be an equal size to everybody who has pulse chain points. And so you're going to see with Hart's law and how I think that like bridging would work. There might be some really deep, powerful game theory going on here, where we're going to see really all the copies of every ERC20 that is valued by the fixer bot, and like it has been fixed by the fixer bot, basically so that pulse chain doesn't become devalued right away, because it's because the ratios will be off, and that's why you need the fixer bot in the first place, is so people don't get a bunch of free coins, the people who zoom in there ahead of everybody else, ahead of like the normal users. So if you start off with basically, if you start off with a fact that let's do the thought experiment, and let's say that like everybody who owned Pulse except for the OA and the fixer bot, if they all spent every single Pulse coin that they had to buy alts on Pulse chain, like, so, whatever the top tokens are on Ethereum, those copies, those would be the things that people are buying. So like, P SHIB or whatever. And maybe it's just called SHIB on there, whatever. The point is, like, the free copies that everybody has, like, even if everybody who owned those sold them to everybody who had Pulse chain, basically, you wouldn't necessarily have like a crash, or basically you'd have a really unique situation where I believe that based on Hart's law, like whatever value is bridged in from Ethereum, like that would allow a significant value to be given to all these new tokens. And somebody could check me on that. Somebody could tell me if they think I'm wrong, but basically I'm imagining a Johnny Chaos like situation where he's predicted that there would be like a lot of forces at play to create parity between EHEX and PHEX. What I'm saying is that might be the situation with every coin on Ethereum, not just Hex, because I mean, you can count out the stables from that, and you could go back and you could look at this fixerbot address, and you could almost imagine, well, it looks like there are 3,144 tokens that are being valued here by the fixerbot. So that's pretty telling. There are about 30,000 or 60,000 cryptocurrency, addresses out there for token contracts. And, so it's only about 10% of those that here have been fixed by the fixer bot. Everything else, I guess, would just trade wildly as whatever it was. But if you can imagine a situation where even if everybody traded all of their Pulse, which they wouldn't, that wouldn't even be close. But like the fact that even if every single alt was sold for Pulse, and maybe you could sell every single alt and not even, not everybody would sell their Pulse. So you'd be only getting a tiny, tiny fraction of the Pulse supply. And the way that the automated market maker would work in that situation anyway, is that, people who are trying to dump their Pulse for alts or their alts for Pulse are going to eat as much slippage as the market maker wants to make. And if the fixer bot scales in over time, like it looks like it's doing here, because it's retained $636 million worth of Pulse points. So I don't know what like the amount of its stack that is. I don't know if that's 90% of its stack that it held back. I don't know if it's 50% of its stack, but that is a huge, huge, huge amount of Pulse that's being held back apparently by the fixer bot. And so if these assumptions are correct, what I'm saying is that this would be a really, really powerful thing. It's not sharing the screen that I'm showing. I guess they keep making changes to StreamYard here. But yeah, let me share my window. That's my bad. So I was showing here. Here's the address where you can see the 3,144 tokens that apparently the fixer bot has and how much Pulse it has here. And then I went to Wolfram Alpha and like calculated how many millions of dollars of Pulse points that is. And so this is pretty exciting. If you've been following this stuff for 2 years and you've been trying to make sense of it, I think this is kind of a big deal to point this out. I'm going to check in with the chat here and see if anybody has any questions about that. And then I can go on to other topics, but we might circle back to this at the end because I think it's that important to be able to understand that it doesn't matter how much, you could trade all of the Pulse chain tokens in the world for all of the fiat money in the world. And you would still have Hart's Law kind of making this fixer bot super powerful to be able to theoretically force parity, albeit like maybe a different form of parity. It's there to fix the prices, to establish the liquidity, and to do so in a way that's like hyper efficient. And the whole genius of not only having the fixer bot, but having it scale in over time, I think is a huge game changer, because basically it's like if you were the Fed and you could just like basically you can make sure that any money that came into a system, it's more complicated than being the Fed, I think, because the Fed just prints money. But in this case, you've got Hart's Law that's like holding up the value of this entire ecosystem through the value of Pulse chain or anything that's bridging in. And if you have something bridging in, it's only going to be able to purchase a certain amount on the other side of the trade. And the amount that it's going to be able to purchase is like going to be, it's going to dynamically go up and down based on how much liquidity is present. But if you start off with a certain amount of liquidity on everything, I think the fact that you've got only pretty much like a 1-to-1 ratio between like Pulse chain tokens that the fixer bot has and then Pulse chain tokens that like every user has in the system, I think that's a really important thing, because if that ratio is like 20-to-1, like I thought it was supposed to be, then that would be a completely different situation where you wouldn't have such a forced parity opportunity, I guess is what I'm saying. So I don't know. People can figure out what they think, and maybe I'll have to do an emergency stream with Johnny at some point to go over this idea. But yes, gonna go ahead and check in here. What's up, Aaron, my online ghost, the beached whale? Good to see you, everybody. Somebody says nice glasses. Thanks. Looking forward to your contract on V3 Public. Any ETA you can share with us? Yeah, so that was one of the things that I wrote on the list that I want to update people on. Everybody knows that ever since I clicked through the private testnet to be able to undo a hack, that really got me fired up. And that's the part of the brand that we're calling Smart Vault. Smart Vault Me is how you can use a smart contract to take back possession of a digital vault. And you do this through self-custody. You do it through creating a smart contract that you hold in your MetaMask, in your Trezor, wherever you hold your account. Basically, you're going to have two different seed phrases, and one of them can be cold storage and the other one can be a hot wallet. Basically, what that allows you to do is to detect if anybody's compromised your online wallet and then seize ownership of the vault. So when I actually clicked through the buttons and was able to undo a hack, that got me fired up. And I've been excited probably now for the past 2 or 3 weeks. We've gotten really close to going to audit. There was one feature that I still wanted to add, and I got to talk to my team and make sure that that can still happen. But basically, the idea is we want to add a hard lock. So not just a drip, but we want to have like an advanced feature where you'll be able to time lock the amount of Ethereum that you need, let's say, to unlock a hex stake in the future, because you can calculate how much gas that might cost. And why not buy the Ethereum now and time lock it so that it's guaranteed to be there right when you need it. No matter if the price of Ethereum goes up to $100,000 per coin in 15 years, well, lucky you, because you already bought, 0.1 Ethereum or something today, and you time locked it for the exact day before your hex time lock comes out. That way you can end the stake without having all that value get drained out by the Ethereum ecosystem, because it actually might cost like a lot of ETH to end a stake in the, many years into the future. So that's, I think it's a really important tool that basically I could have gone ahead with the audit already if I wasn't so excited about that particular feature. So that's kind of where things are at with Time Pays Me and Smart Vault. The other thing that's really had me excited lately is that there are some really big names in the crypto influencer space that appear to be signaling to me that they want to support Time Pays Me and Smart Vault. And so that is like a complete shocker to me that that this could blow up like really big, really fast, basically. So that's where we're at. I mean, the audit takes about a week, and then it's like, then you click the go button, after you do all the other testing that you want to do. And so that might involve like having a small group of alpha testers, people who are trusted in the community, to get their take on it. But then I'm also going to put $10,000 of my own money, and I'm going to read the seed words off on stream once it gets launched on Ethereum. And, that should demonstrate to people exactly how it works. So that'll be cool. Yeah, so that's coming along really, really well. Looking great. Hey, thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah, the mining pickaxe. That's right. It's all free speech. Blockchain is free speech. You're just publishing numbers and mining transactions. Tell us about the incentive token. Yeah, I mean, that's something that we did a whole special episode on, and I'm not so much into the yield farming on BSC and all that, but we did an episode about it, I think 2 weeks ago on Game Theory Gang. We had a incentive token expert join us, so definitely check that out. And shout out to Art and everybody else who's supporting the channel by being a member. You guys rock. Alan says, I miss future us. Yeah, exactly. Sandy Beach, good to see you there. Mick. Melv Tony says Hex is at 9 cents. Hey, that sounds pretty good to me. Muted? Is my sound coming through okay? Test. Yeah, I think it's working. Hex going to dip again, question mark. I would say it is going to be totally volatile for a while because people have withdrawn liquidity because they don't want the fixer bot to take their coins. Will you do a small amount locked over a short time, over a shorter amount of time in the vault, just to show everyone that it works fine when unlocking? Yes, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And as I said, I'm even going to read the seed words off to people so that that way I can prove to you that it can't be hacked, but it'll also show you how the drip works. Cool. So what else do we have on the agenda today? So shout out to Tangent for asking that great question and getting us so interested in the fixer bot. Because I think that it's hard to state how important that's going to be in making Pulse Chain successful. Because if the value of all the Pulse Chain tokens are basically leveraged up based on how much demand there is for people wanting to buy their copies on Pulse Chain, I think it's going to be a really big deal. I think it's going to give the entire ecosystem of copied coins, I think it's going to give it actually a way higher value than most people would expect. And it will probably come with greater volatility, but there's at least the potential for these coins to appreciate significantly. And I think that would also push up the price of Pulse like immediately. Because I think if you wanted to bridge in a certain amount of value to hold up the price of these free copies, basically I'd imagine you'd have to go through Pulse, or that would be a really popular pair, basically. Okay, so, and then I was looking into the Pulse Chain bridge situation, the actual going to the test net and playing around with that. And I found somewhere, it was in the Pulse Chain Telegram, that the Combot says that the new testnet bridge for V3 will likely open in the next couple of days because Rinkaby testnet is closed for good. So that's part of what it said. So and I know Fashion Coder made a video about how it's not working yet. And that's one of the clues that we have to think that that's when Pulse Chain will launch, is at least after the bridge situation gets fixed with the testnet to show that it's working. So that's really cool. So shout out to Axis Alive for talking about the ALLin indicator with crypto coffee. I was talking to Crispy Man today. We might actually change the name to something that's maybe a little bit more descriptive, like the ALLin T-share longevity score, or something maybe not that long, but basically we want to play around with the name a little bit more to try to help people understand that it's a measure of basically the duration that you have your T-shares for, not just the count of how many T-shares you have. Because the idea is that you could have 100 T-shares for a month, and that would be a totally different value in Hex terms compared to having 100 T-shares for only 5 years. And then you have to rebuy at the higher T-share rate in 5 years. which is actually 8 years into the project, which is below the average time lock. So you'd imagine that the T-share price would have ratcheted up significantly by then. And that's having 5-year T-shares, or basically having 500 T-share years. That would be way different than having 1,500 T-share years, because the value of the years, the farther out they are, the more compound interest that they're going to get to an exponential degree. So this is it's like the next level of understanding T-shares has to do with T-share duration. So we made a way basically for people to test this out if you subscribe to Crispy Man's Patreon. That's only like $20 a month to get access to this tool where you can enter your addresses and it'll tell you what your rank is and how many T-share days you have left. That helps you figure out part of the equation of how much interest you're going to get in the future and where you compare to other people. For me, I was like 100 spots higher compared to my Staker app rank because of how long I've staked compared to the average of people in my same weight class. So that's really interesting. And if you guys want to see a clip of that, I will post where T-Bird had clipped that stream with Crypto Coffee and Access Live. So shout out to them. They've been making awesome content lately. And speaking of awesome content, I'm going to go on with Crypto Class and Hodprol tomorrow. I'm going to go on their show. So I'm really looking forward to that because I know that they'll have some good questions for me. We'll be able to talk about everything that's going on. So definitely tune in for that. Let me see. There's a Twitter thing I wanted to share while we're on the topic of T-shares. So here's what I wrote on Twitter earlier today that I thought might be helpful to share. It says T-shares literally prove how much financial gratification you will delay, which is basically the tokens or the money that you burn, and how long you will wait to finish a rewarding math problem on the blockchain. And the reward you're getting is compound interest. That's your T-share. And the math is just clicking a button. So it's not scary like math is for some people. So yeah. And then, Richard Hart, he's been tweeting so much lately, especially yesterday, about how blockchain is just free speech. It's just publishing the answers to your math homework onto the blockchain. You're a publisher. It has nothing to do with all the government overreach that appears to be creeping in. It's like, if you really understood the technical aspect of crypto, you would realize that the calling Hex or calling Ethereum a security is just nonsense. Like it doesn't meet the definition because it's just like publishing your answers to a math problem. It's not, crypto isn't something you can even hold. It's digital. It doesn't exist physically. You can't have it. Basically, all you can have is like the answers of how to solve the proof, the math equation. And so that's really interesting to me. Yeah, so I think I threw that in the chat so people can check out that tweet and see what they think about it. Get Richard Hart in a live stream. Why would we do that? I mean, I love streaming with Richard, but he's not in charge of Hex. He's he doesn't work for us. He's just the awesome creator, genius, Mensa, guy that can be humble or he could brag, either way. let's see, T-share strength, something similar. Yeah, we're going to need to come up with some name for it. All right, what else? What else do I have on the schedule here? Okay, so we already talked about Smart Vault and Time Pays Me updates. By the way, the Telegram that I have, it's kind of made for Smart Vault, but it's basically just all of my alpha that I ever create goes into this Telegram, and there's 1,020 subscribers. And this is so if I have any great idea, I usually tweet it and then post the tweet in here. So it's a really, really, really high signal there's no noise. It's just a high signal Telegram. I usually post in there once or twice a day, and it's really nice edible content. And it's t.me/smartvaultme. I'd like highly recommend you subscribe to that. I just dropped the link in the chat. Let's see. Market emotions check-in. We'll get to that. First, I want to talk about Hexpo Miami. And I've got some pretty epic merch that's going to be coming out for that. We're getting down to the end, so it's time to get your tickets now, or, guess you'll miss out because I'm probably going to stop selling them in about a week and a half. And this is for people to be able to go to the Hex meetup at the Bitcoin conference. It's going to be May 18th to 20th. And I'm really excited. There's already a really fun group of people that signed up. We're already within my target range of 60 to 120 people. I wanted to make the experience more exclusive this year, because last year I did a meetup with 555 people and nobody broke my record. So, that means I don't have to try to get the new all-time score until somebody beats me, basically. So, and I support all Hex meetups. And so, it's a lot of fun to go to these things. People really like them. I had a blast at the Bitcoin conference last year, and I wanted to recreate that experience for other people. I'm going to do a 48-hour live stream. I'm going to be messaging people and getting them to sign up to be speaking for an hour at the 48-hour live stream. And so I'm really excited. You can read more about it at the blog, and that'll show you what you need to know to get a ticket for fundraising. And I guess probably on Tuesday night, I'll do a giveaway for one ticket. And if people can't go, then I'll just send you the merch, because the merch is going to be really special. So yeah, that's really exciting, but don't miss out. Like I will, when I say I'm going to stop selling tickets, like that's what I'm going to do, because it's going to take so much to hand make all this merch that I'm planning. Okay, cool. So that's hexpomiami.com. Last call for tickets. So in terms of market emotions, that's what I did this segment on last week and the week before that. And like I said, that's where people tuned in the most. So I don't have specifically, I don't think we've moved on to yet another stage. And I would just remind people of what I said before, that you can be in more than one stage at once. You can be in boredom. Like boredom isn't particularly one that is like the stage we're at now, but you could be in lots of emotional states all at the same time when it comes to the market, and when it comes to either the price of Hex or the anticipation of Pulse Chain launching. You could be in the disbelief stage right now. You could have gone to hope in the past week, then you could have spun back into disbelief, and then you could be approaching hope again. especially as the price has tracked from like 1.7 cents near the beginning of the year. And then we ran all the way up to what, 12.5 cents just a week ago, something like that. Time has really been flying, and it's also been going kind of slow. It's kind of weird. But then we fell all the way back down to like 6.9 cents that I saw. Now we're all the way back at 9. So that was predicted that there would be a high amount of volatility, especially as people remove their liquidity in anticipation of the fork. So that's pretty exciting. I don't think we're in euphoria yet. So that's something to look for. And into like persistent positive emotions. But I think for now, people are still in hope and disbelief. That's what I would say. I wanted to share this tweet when it comes to Staker app announcing that they're going to do a coin. It's really crazy. So Steph tweeted snapshot back on March 27th. And then I questioned if it was Staker app because he didn't say, and some people were speculating that he was talking about Pulse Chain. So there was a rumor that the snapshot was happening for Pulse Chain. And then here he said, we may drop a token with a sick brand and sharp tokenomics. Anyone interested? Our loyal users would definitely enjoy a sweet airdrop for their continuous trust and support. And then he emphasized many times over, don't try to farm. You may not like the outcome. And I think that there were a lot of people who like said that they were excited, and other people were like not excited because they were worried about it. But overall, I think people are really excited about Staker App V2 and these mysterious tweets by Steph. For some people, it's, I would say, increasing the anticipation because Steph's a really good guy. So you gotta always, follow him and see what he's up to. And he's been really bullish lately. He's, I guess, a rumored hex whale. So that's pretty cool too. All right. So what else do we have on the agenda here? So what else has been going on in, let's see, what else has been going on in the macro? So I'm going to read you my take on this. And I sourced Concoda, who's like, I've been following Concoda since before they were popular, but not, I think I was following them when their Twitter was 5,000, when they were smaller than me, and now they're almost at 100,000. And they're probably the best macroeconomic writer I've ever seen. Almost to the point where I can't understand it because it's like that technical. But basically, I'm questioning here in my tweet. I'm saying quantitative tightening or quantitative easing. And that makes a big difference for the near-term crypto economy, of course, because the more money they print, the higher the value of crypto can go. And the more that they tighten, the more that could affect crypto to the downside in the short term. And I was trying to reason about this, like, because I've heard really smart people take opposite points here, that a lot of people say that we're quantitative tightening right now, but a lot of other people say that we're quantitative easing. So if we can't even understand whether there's more money being created or less money being accessed, that's like a whole different clown show, basically. It's like if economists can't agree on that much. But what I'm reasoning here, and this is just an open thought, is like, if people have access to their bank accounts, which is a big if, but if people are also seeing a crack in the banking system, then the funds are available to flee to crypto, and then a bank run can be good. Bank runs basically test the solvency of something. Like, that's really the narrative of why bank runs aren't always a bad thing. Like, if it really is backed by the full faith and credit, like if deposits are backed by real dollars, like the money that everybody put into the bank isn't like imaginary numbers, then doing a run on the bank basically gives people more access to their money. One thing I'll point out is that, like, even before COVID, banks didn't have cash in their vaults, like, at all. They haven't had that for a long time. It's like a huge liability and like a security risk. Like, if you want to take 5 or 10, even like $10,000 in cash out of the bank, out of like a local, basically community bank, you have to order it ahead of time. They don't just have it sitting there. Like, sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. You couldn't have multiple people go there on the same day and like do that kind of volume. And that's like very little volume compared to what the bank is actually moving. And so when you think of like what a bank run is these days, it doesn't even mean people going to get money out of the bank. It's people going to get verified so they can transfer their money to a bigger bank that doesn't have the same short-term treasury like fiasco that is happening, because when they raised interest rates, then banks couldn't sell their treasuries for what they thought that they'd be able to get for them. And that, that's what makes it so that Silvergate and all these other banks, Silicon Valley Bank, they ran out of money, even the made up electronic money that they had, and they had to halt withdrawals. But those were people not trying to withdraw physical cash. Those were people trying to transfer money into like JP Morgan and the top 4 banks. And so, but the banks, like, they had lost so much money because everybody wanted to buy treasuries that pay 5% now, not pay 1%. So they were having to sell their treasuries at a discount to even have enough numbers in their bank account. But basically the idea is, you can test the solvency. Like, there's a day every year that Trace Mayer invented that's like where you're supposed to go to the crypto exchanges and withdraw all of your funds to see if they actually have it. But with fictional reserve banking, that we're seeing now in the fiat economy that's been there forever, that's like provable, that's an even worse situation than crypto. But basically the point is, if people go and try to get their money, and then the government has to like step in and allow these fake numbers to like actually move around again, right? Some of those fake numbers could move over into the crypto ledger, and that's an important thing, because like the government hasn't made crypto illegal, and like they can't make crypto illegal. But a major part of like a bank run these days has to do with moving electronic dollars around. And if people still, if those electronic dollars do exist, if people are allowed to get access to them, then they can still transfer it into crypto. So the more instability that the fiat system creates for itself, the more the more can flow into crypto, as long as those on-ramps are still established. So that's how I'm thinking about this. I don't know. I'm already ready to like pretty much be all in crypto, in terms of like, being 95% in, that kind of thing. And so it doesn't matter to me in the short term as much, and I'm more thinking in the long term now, which I'm grateful for. So that's kind of how I'm looking, and we'll have to look back on history and be like, wow, that was a situation that we weren't necessarily ever in before. And I'd encourage everybody to read this thread that I found from Concoda on what they're calling the Great Financial Tightening, and it goes in this thread into like an actual diagram of how the repo system works. Like this is the economic plumbing of like the fiat system right here, like literally visualized. And you could just like see how complex it is, but still it's like, how would you ever be able to keep all this straight if you didn't have a diagram like this? This makes it so that 1,000x people or more, maybe 10,000x people can like understand what the reverse repo market is. Like, and Concoda does this for like multiple concepts. And that's why I really like this author. But this is exactly like what's going on. This is the exact situation, the exact experiment that the Fed is like carrying out. Yeah, and here's a good example of like what the Fed's BTFP program is, which is like the new facility that they have for propping up the banking system. So in step 1, bank term funding program participants needing to raise cash swap a security they don't want to sell outright to avoid unrealized losses with cash from the Fed. They send the fully digitized security to the Fed via the FedWire Securities Service, which custodies the asset during the loan. Step 2, to obtain the cash, the BTFP participant pays the going overnight index swap rate plus a 10 basis points or 0.1% spread. They can borrow cash for up to 1 year. They can pay back the full amount early with no penalty. Only securities owned on March 12th, 2023 can be pledged by the participant. And then in step 3, unlike other Fed programs, no haircut is applied to the BTFP's participants' collateral, meaning they receive the security's full initial par value in cash rather than its market value. Moreover, they don't have to sell the security, thereby preventing a realized loss. If a bank run prompted them to sell a large number of assets, doing so might wipe out a bank's equity. The BTFP program mitigates this. So basically, it's not like they're really printing money, but they're backstopping this like way that the banking system was falling apart because interest rates were being raised so much. And Concoda's point is like, well, maybe they're doing that so that they can raise interest rates way higher, like, or maybe they're on shaky ground. It's hard to tell, but Concoda still thinks that this is like more of a historic tightening situation. But this exact method, it's never existed before. So they're literally making up the rules as they go, the Federal Reserve. And this is like clear proof, like, yes, this is pretty much what I heard reported in The Economist magazine, reported on podcasts, reported by the Fed when they testified in front of the Senate or the Financial Services Committee and everything. So anyway, let me drop this tweet, and that way people can educate themselves. Okay, what else? So we talked about stake wrap, QT or QE. Concoda also had a point today that there was news that China is like starting to trade without dollars, and mainstream media and like other people are picking up on it. They want you to worry. They're like, oh no, now other countries aren't going to use the dollar anymore. Well, Concoda's point was they try this all the time and it doesn't work. It becomes a race between the non-world reserve currencies, like if China and Brazil, or China and whatever, if they're like accepting each other's currency, it just becomes a race to see like who can get rid of the other person's currency the fastest, because they're settling their trade using the money that they can print however much they want of. And no country prints less money than the US because that's the world reserve currency. And the world reserve currency can basically dilute every other currency. Um, but then basically for them to get free money, they have to outprint the US. And so anyway, the whole point is like they'll be back for the dollar. That's a hot take to me. Like I can't guarantee what they're going to do because it's outside of my control, but that's a really good point. It's like, well, those other countries are just going to dump each other's currency until they want to come back to the dollar. um, like another thing that I wanted to report on that's been commented on lately is the PLS gas fee feedback that Richard was having with the community, with this idea that like the gas prices were too cheap. I think that's another incredibly important, like nuanced detail of Pulse Chain being successful. It's making sure that it's not too mispriced when it comes to like creating the right incentives. And that's literally what game theory is all about. And so I'm glad to see like the master of game theory, Richard Hart himself, like he's thinking of all those little things and making the right calls. And so that's really cool. I think he said it would be 1,000 times more profit if like the way I was thinking about it, what he announced is that it'd be 1,000 times more pulse that you'd be getting as a validator, but you're still diluted by 1.2 million X compared to Ethereum. So it's like kind of the middle ground there between what they would have been getting and what they're getting is like a halfway point, which is really cool. So I think that that's incredible. I love that. The PLS gas not being too cheap and not being too expensive is the sweet spot that everybody wants. And being able to see the Pulse Chain price appreciate greatly and still have cheap fees, I think is also another positive that's possible with this chain. A lot of people are talking about the Shanghai upgrade for Ethereum coming out, just maybe a couple weeks away. I have no idea what that's going to do to the price of Ethereum, but I'm really curious to find out because 15% of Ethereum coins have been time locked and they're going to be released, I think, over a period of time. And I think the market is probably got it priced in, but it's always really hard to tell because a whale could change their mind or they could fake out the market. You never know what's going to happen in the macro anyway. So yeah, I don't have any hot takes on the Shanghai upgrade, but I think that that's going to be a really important moment in crypto history, is to see what happens to the price of Ethereum after that. And I could see it going either way. I could see it shooting up higher because nobody thinks it's going to do that. I could also see it crashing much further because people are underestimating how much is going to get sold. So let's see. Shout out to the 193 people watching right now. Hit the like and subscribe button. Thanks for being here. Meltoni has like some pretty detailed price percentage movements for the price of Hex. It's up 6% in the past 24 hours. 7 days, it's down 15%. 14 days, up 11%. 30 days, up 34%. 60 days, up 228%. And compared to a year ago, it's down 43%. That's great. Thanks for dropping that in the chat. Any updates on Poor Pleb? Isn't that like already released? Isn't that like doing its thing? I think your friend Sami speaks highly of Poor Pleb. He does great videos. He's crushing it. Everybody should go subscribe to him. Let's see. So yeah, tons of great Hex streams out there. I appreciate all the other content creators. Thanks to everybody who's liking and retweeting what's been going on. Even this stream, people have been sharing more, and I really appreciate that. So thanks for tuning in. I gotta say, I'm so pumped about everything that's happening. I feel like I need to pace myself. I need to like rest up because we got a lot to look forward to here, especially with the realization that I had today when it comes to what I think the Fixer bot is going to do. So if you didn't watch the beginning of the episode, definitely rewind and check it out, because basically my intuition is telling me that if the Fixer bot has $636 million worth of pulse points still left in its address, now that V3 has already launched and been operational for a while, what that tells me is that there could be an incredible test underway that basically shows that the Fixer bot could hold on to the same amount of pulse chain tokens as the entire user base of sacrificers has sacrificed for. Because if the OA 10 or 20x the supply, and the Fixer bot has 2.5 or 5% of the total supply, then that could create a incredibly favorable like situation with Hart's law, with liquidity, with what Johnny has been saying about the opportunity to have parity or extreme pumpamentals on Hex for Pulse Chain and Hex on Ethereum. What I'm saying is that could possibly apply to every single token, that you could have a really, really strong pairing to Pulse, and then that would ratchet up the value of the entire ecosystem of tokens based on the price of Pulse and based on the demand for those individual tokens. But that relative to the ETH chain, it could appreciate very quickly and very powerfully, because how would you even bridge in value to buy those tokens would probably be through Pulse or through your own wrapped tokens that you're bringing in. And so that's a huge amount of value that people could be bringing in. That could be force multipliers against each other, basically, is what I'm saying. So I think that we're going to look back on this and be like, wow, that was the most brilliant thing that could have ever been done in the history of blockchain. And I think that it could really catch people by surprise at how valuable these Pulse chain copies could be. Even if it's the difference between they're worth 1% of their value on Ethereum, or if they're worth like 50% of their value on Ethereum, like nobody would ever guess that it would be 50%. Like that would be an outrageous thing. It would shock the entire world to no end. And just understanding the mechanics of like, what is Uniswap? Like, how do automated market makers work? Like, how do you actually position liquidity to cause, you want low liquidity and high demand, like a walled garden, and you want all these components that we're going to have. So I'm starting to understand the brilliant move that could be made here. And so I can't wait to discuss it more with other people in the community and find out what other people think. So certainly leave a comment or, let me know what you're thinking when it comes to the realization that the FixerBot could have an equal number of tokens as uh, the entire user base controls. I think that could be the greatest pump of mental of all time. So with that being said, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Make sure to catch Randy Hilarski if he's going to be streaming here in the next hour or so. Let's see if there's anybody we can raid. And like I said, I'll be back streaming tomorrow with the Hex ladies when it comes to crypto class and Hod Pro and maybe a couple other people. So that's I'm looking forward to that as well. Let me see, YouTube. Oh, it looks like Dollar Cost Crypto is going to be streaming here momentarily. Oh, well, in a little bit over an hour. And, if people are looking for their next stream to watch, you can always go to the PulseTube, pulsetube.com. Let me load up that link. So like I said, hit the like and subscribe button, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this episode. Did you learn something? Was it helpful? Do you have an idea of how all this will work? And let me get the outro music going here. Twitter, get ready for by ordering a Trezor from my link in the description below. Get your tickets now for Hexpo Miami. Get on the testnet, practice, follow Richard Hart, follow the other Hex creators. And until next time, publish and mine and stake wisely, my friends. And peace out.